first corner drafted. The PointsBet odds are available, and as always, our odds come from them. There's Patrick Surtain, minus 300, the clear favorite. J.C. Horn, plus 200. Your guy Caleb Farley, plus 1,500. Looks like the folks in Vegas think that it would be Patrick Surtain to the Cowboys at 10, or maybe to someone else before then.
Yeah, I would think that that's the first guy off the board. You know, clean medical history, been coached by Nick Saban, you know, has all the attributes you want. To me, the one thing you've heard me say continually about Surtain is just I wish he was a little faster. You know, I do think he's going to have some issues matching up man-to-man with the elite receivers in football, the speed guys that way. You know, that's to me where Caleb Farley, I don't question that at all. I've never seen someone that big run the way Caleb Farley does. But, yeah, I think when you take all into account, I think Surtain is going to be the first guy off the board. You know, it'll be interesting. It's a good corner group. It really is. I think some of these guys in this group are a little overrated for my money. You know, again, I don't know how you can rank, and this makes sense to you, Mike. I don't know how you can rank a corner like a top 20 pick, a top 10 pick, that kind of stuff, if they don't run 4.3. You know, the great corners in the history of the sport run 4.3 or better. You just go through it. That's it. How do you expect them to cover the really fast receivers in football if they're a tenth of a second slower? And the receivers,
you got to be able to recover. I've heard you say this before. You got to be able to recover when they make the move. When they zig and you thought they were going to zag, you got to have the ability to close the ground.
That's where I err on a little bit of just pure speed when I evaluate corners, and I have a decent history with corners evaluation. But it's an interesting topic, and some of these corners that we even had on the list there, you know, they're zone guys where I'm going to go, you can't put him on an island. They didn't even trust him in college to be on an island. And now you're going to say, okay, we're going to draft him in the top 25 picks? Like that to me, what doesn't add up sometimes.
The two guys at the top of the odds that we showed from PointsBet, Patrick Surtain II, J.C. Horn, both the sons of NFL players.
Yeah,
now,
cool.
Surtain's dad was a corner. J.C. Horn's dad, Joe Horn, was a receiver. What is the factor? Is there a factor? Does it count? Does it matter if dad was an NFL player? Does that help a guy?
I do. I think it does help a guy. I think the big thing is where coaches, front office people, you know, they feel comfortable and wait, this guy grew up in this. He knows what life is like in the NFL. He knows what to expect. And, you know, more times than not, knows what it takes to be a professional and play in the league. I think that's the positives. You know, they realize, like, okay, more times than not, it's like, hey, this guy grew up in this. He's a gym rat. This is what he likes to do. He knows everything about the sport. There's going to be no shocks. He understands the business, everything like that. I think that's the value that, you know, coaches and GMs look at with, you know, sons of ex-players and things like that.
Asante Samuel Jr. also in the draft. He was Asante Sr. was a Patriots standout, went to the Eagles, got a huge contract. Last year, Antoine Winfield Jr., who I thought should have gone higher than he did.
Definitely.
Buccaneers get him, and he ends up being a key member of that defense. That's another reason. And we know how the cycle works. A guy comes in, his dad played, he does really well, all of a sudden, more attractive. Go back to 2004, quarterback gets drafted. His dad was a really good quarterback. He doesn't do so well. All of a sudden, the son of a player isn't as attractive. You didn't see where I went there, did you?
Well, because you said 2004, I was drafted in 2003. I thought you were talking about Eli. I was like, what is he talking about, Eli?
I'm talking about the 2004 draft because it was the 2003 draft where you entered the league.
Oh, okay.
By that
Gotcha.
draft, they're saying,
well,
right. Forget about the son of the guy who played. So, anyway.
Sorry.
All right, let's move on. Who will be the first defender drafted regardless of position? What does PointsBet say about that? Drum roll, please. Surtain, over under for him, 10.5. Michael Parsons, 12.5 for him. There's Horn at 13.5. Kwity Paye, the edge rusher from Michigan, 16.5. Christian Barmore, 23.5. Gregory Rousseau, 30.5. It's so hard to tell this year.
Yeah.
It really is. There's none of these that jump off to me as wrong or right. We just don't know. I think Surtain is the one that's the most intriguing because, like you said, if he's there at 10, it seems like the Cowboys would/should take him.
Right.
So I would go under on him. For the rest, who the hell knows?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. Listen, the one I don't, J.C. Horn, you know, we were just talking about. I like him a lot. I see a lot of things like that here recently where it's top 15, top 20. I'm shocked by that. I really am. I'm shocked. Good player, but, he would be that guy, again, that I would say, I don't know if the speed is quite special enough for me to take him in the top 20 and think he's going to lock down, like, top-end receivers. It's the top two guys of the list for me, Mike, as far as the first two defenders off the board. We talked about the Cowboys, right, with Surtain at 10 and all of that. So that's certainly a possibility. I brought up the Broncos before in that conversation about a team that could be looking defense. I look at them at 9 to think, hey, Vic Fangio came from the 49ers. What did he have there? Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis. He went to the Chicago Bears, defensive coordinator. They signed Danny Trevathan, drafted Roquan Smith in the top 10. The middle linebacker is really probably the most glaring need on their football team. Michael Parsons is that guy I look at to go, he could go number 9. He's too special of a specimen. He's right up there with the Devin Bushes and the Devin Whites of the world who we saw both go in the top 10 or 11, 2 years ago. So I could see him being the first guy off the board of the Broncos at number 9. I wouldn't be shocked by that.
Here's my open plea for J.C. Horn.
Right.
Wherever he lands, wherever he plays, get a couple of old flip phones.
Yeah, definitely.
Put them under the goalpost every game. You get fined, we will raise the money. We will do the GoFundMe to raise the money for the fine. I know that no one else is supposed to pay the fine. Fine. We will raise the money to pay the fine. And you actually got to call Dad. That's the other part of it, too. You got to go fish out the phone and call Dad after scoring your first NFL touchdown. It may take a while playing defense, but I think it's worth it. And it would be money well spent, especially since it would be someone else's money that would be raising to pay for that fine.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, yeah, it would be really cool. He is a stud as far as his body makeup, his strength, his physicality, his attitude. I mean, I love that aspect of him. He's got a no-nonsense, in-your-face type of style that I do love. There's no doubt. It'd be cool if he did do that at some point in his career. Flip phone, I guess he could still buy them. Or maybe he just, iPhones it, right? He's got gloves on. It's going to be hard to dial on the flip phone. He could just pick up the iPhone and say, hey, Siri, call Dad, and that might be a cool thing to do. So I'm with you there. I hope he infuses that into a celebration at some point.
He's got to get Nike to make him a set of gloves that maybe has just tiny little holes at the tips of the fingers or the different material so you can still punch out on the phone. But either way, we hope that at some point there will be an homage to what his dad did all those years ago, although it was a significant fine, a very significant fine that was imposed on Joe Horn. How many defenders go in the first half of the draft? Let's see what point. Do we have a points bet odds on that or no? Do we? No. Just curiosity.
Yeah.
Look, I think we may not see any until 10. After that, I don't know. 4? Is 4 too high? What's the over? How about over under 3.5? What are you taking? 3.5.
That's a good. Okay, that's a good one there. Man, I would say I'm gonna go. I'll go over. Did you say 3.5? I'll go over.
3.5.
I'm gonna say 4. But it's dicey when you sit there and look at that, especially you go the top half of the draft. Your Vikings football team, I would think, would be thinking defense, right? I would think the Giants are thinking defense. Cowboys, Broncos. Those are the 4 I'm kind of leaning on. I don't know about, the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Eagles. They could go a lot of different ways there. So I'll go in with the over as far as if you set it at 3.5. What do you think?
What do you think the Broncos do if Justin Fields is there at 9?
That's again, one of those where you brought it up earlier, right? Where it's wait, the coaching staff's butts could be on the hot seat. The personnel people just got there and might be going, we're looking in the future. We don't care that your butt's hot on the seat, whatever there. So that's where it's a tough decision that way. Man, I would just think with where they are as an organization right now, if I'm Denver, I'm staying with Drew Lock, and I'm calling the 49ers and trying to get Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what I'm trying to do right now. That would be my play if I'm them. Again, I never.
Not Teddy? I'd want Teddy.
Okay, or him too. Either way, either one, that type of guy. Again, I'm not a big believer in Justin Fields as a top 10 pick. I'm not. I've said that from the start. I really think he's somewhere between 20 and 32 for me. There's some issues in his game that I'm just not sold that are fixable, and that would scare the hell out of me. So, yeah, that's what I'll say about the Broncos.
Thing to remember about the Broncos dynamic, and you hit the nail on the head. Vic Fangio may be on the hot seat. George Paton, the new GM, isn't. And Paton ascended to this job after years of being in the NFL. He passed on opportunities to interview for other GM jobs. He surely has a list of coaches he's been scouting. When you're a scout, you're not just scouting players. You're scouting coaches. He's got a list of coaches he wants to hire. He's already got it. He comes to the job with that list. And unless, coincidentally, Vic Fangio is number one on the list or somewhere in the top 5, Payton's not going to care if Fangio ends up getting fired after this year. A lot of times when you get a new GM, when you have an existing
buys
head
you
coach,
an extra year.
He wants to get that coach out. And you're right. It gives you a grace period because you're not judged until you get your coach.
Exactly.
Now, if your team ends up pretty good, then you're stuck with that guy for a few years, like Jerry Angelo was with Dick Duran all those years ago when Angelo wanted to pivot to Nick Saban or Lovie Smith, and Duran won the division, so it ended up being a 3-year forced marriage. But, yeah, Payton isn't going to care unless Vic Fangio is at or near the top of George Payton's list of coaches that he's been waiting to work with.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.